The roots of Zionism go back to the book of Genesis, where God promises Abraham the land of Canaan as an enduring possession. It is a promise the Bible repeats 113 times. In return, the people pledge to obey God's commandments. When Moses leads the children of Israel out of Egypt, he reminds them of what will happen if they worship other gods.
Ye shall be plucked from off the land whither thou goest to possess it, and the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from the one end of the earth even unto the other.
From now on, when tragic events befall them, the people of Israel blame themselves, and they believe that if they repent, God will one day forgive and restore them. It is this hope of eventual return that will give the Jewish people the strength to survive national catastrophes that spell the end for other nations. Though scholars dispute the exact date, the Israelites' conquest of the land of Canaan begins roughly in 1270 BC. Some 250 years later, the kingdom of Israel reaches its height under King David and then King Solomon. Disunity follows as the 10 tribes of the north break away, leaving 2 kingdoms, Israel and Judah. After 200 years, Israel is destroyed by the Assyrians, its dispersed people becoming known as the 10 lost tribes. The kingdom of Judah survives for another 150 years. In 587 BC, the Babylonians besieged Jerusalem, razed Solomon's temple, and banished the kingdom's people. The Bible makes clear that the evil that has befallen the people is due to their failure to keep their part of the covenant. In the words of the prophet Jeremiah,
The priests did not ask, Where is the Lord? The prophets prophesied by Baal, following worthless idols.
the intensity with which the Israelites mourn their land is reflected in the 137th Psalm.
By the rivers of Babylon, there we sat down, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. If I forget thee, O Jerusalem, let my right hand forget her cunning. If I do not remember thee, let my tongue cleave to the roof of my mouth, if I set not Jerusalem above my chiefest joy.
In 538 BC, 50 years after the destruction of Solomon's temple, the Babylonian Empire comes under the rule of Cyrus, king of Persia, and one of his first acts is to permit each conquered nation to return to its old home. A group of Judean exiles return and by 516 BC have rebuilt the temple, which will stand for the next 600 years. The next great conqueror is Alexander the Great, whose successors bring Greek culture to the land of Israel. With this culture comes a wealth of knowledge embraced by the so-called Hellenizers. It also brings foreign gods, causing tension with the more traditional elements in the Israelite population. In 167 BC, an altar to Zeus is erected in the temple in Jerusalem. That year, the traditionalists, led by Judas Maccabeus, revolt in a bid for religious freedom. Their reconsecration of the temple is still celebrated in the festival of Hanukkah. The Maccabees established the Hasmonean kingdom, which lasts over 100 years. It is Judas Maccabeus himself, seeking to strengthen his position against Hellenist opponents who, in an ill-advised move, first allies himself with an up-and-coming Rome. In 63 BC, the new world power will conquer the Holy Land. Over the years, Roman rule becomes increasingly oppressive, and in 66 AD, the Jews stage a revolt that enjoys initial success. But 4 years later, the Roman general Titus reaches Jerusalem, breaches the city's walls, and destroys the Second Temple. The 3rd century Greek historian Dio Cassius describes how Jewish fighters defended the temple to the last.
Though they were but a handful fighting against a far superior force, they were not conquered until part of the temple was set on fire. Then they met their death willingly, some throwing themselves on the swords of the Romans, some slaying one another, others taking their own lives, and still others leaping into the flames.
So traumatic is the temple's destruction that every year on the 9th of Av, Jews fast. They gather in their synagogues, sit on the floor, and recite lamentations.
Oh, how has the city that was once so populous remained lonely, she that was great among the nations, a princess among the provinces, has become tributary.
A band of rebels continues to hold out at the fortress of Masada, overlooking the Dead Sea. They finally take their own lives and those of their families rather than fall into the hands of the Romans. Today, Israeli cadets take their oath of allegiance on Masada, vowing, "Masada shall not fall again." 60 years after the Second Temple's destruction, the Emperor Hadrian decides to rebuild Jerusalem as Syria Capitolina. Instead of Judea, the region is to be known as Syria Palaestina, after the Philistine coastal stretch. This precipitates another major Jewish uprising in 132 AD, the Bar Kokhba revolt. So heavy are the Roman casualties that in his report to the Senate, Hadrian, who led the troops, omits the customary formula, "I and my army are well." But the Romans prevail, and the Jews are forced to retreat to the city of Beitar, south of Jerusalem. After 3 years, the revolt is at an end, with the Jews having lost hundreds of thousands of men. This time, victorious Rome is confident it has not only destroyed the people of Israel, but erased its very memory from the earth.